Welcome back to another episode of Just Ignore It. Today is February 2nd, 2022. I have Liz Adams here with us today, and we're going to talk all about communication.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. Guys, we're back.
Off with how she told me not to pretend I was a DJ or a used car salesman, and I have failed.
We have a misunderstanding most of the time, but
yes.
So last week on Just Ignore It, which how are you guys? We realized we didn't say Just Ignore It enough last week.
So just ignore it.
So we're gonna also Dave's cup is still empty.
You can't prove that. You want to try it?
No. And then so last week we talked about marriage. Today we are kind of going to continue.
We are still married.
We are going to continue that conversation because we had a lot of questions about communication. As a couple, as a married
like that kind of communication?
No, or just like chatter.
Oh, okay.
And just how we deal with like each other's pet peeves, and then we're kind of going to roll into how we like function as a family. There's a lot to cover.
Dysfunction.
So communication. I would say Dave and I have pretty good communication, but I don't think it has always been that way.
You just tell me what to do, and then I do it or argue with you if I don't want to.
Well, that's like when it comes to communicating tasks. But don't you think when it
comes to communication?
When it comes to communicating like normal things.
Like what, for example?
Like, you're frustrating me.
Okay. We are way better about that now. And then instead... Liz definitely used to internalize things and not tell me what was bothering her. Have you guys ever played what I refer to as the quiet game? So if Liz gets upset, frustrated, disappointed, etc., with me, which rarely happens, she just like shuts down and goes quiet. And I'm like, what's wrong? And then the famous like, nothing. Like, you're screwed. But like they won't tell you what's wrong. They just want to be quiet and shame you in the corner. Well, so we've gotten better about that. Where I'm like, just tell me what's pissing you off, and then you tell me, and then I'm like, that's ridiculous. Why would that bother you? And then we end up fighting about it anyway. So, but we just get it over with, and then we kiss and make up.
Just Ignore It is probably going to be very good for our relationship.
Yeah. This is like talking to a psychiatrist.
But communicate, except we're talking to a phone.
Which is
communication, like Dave said, used to not be my strong point because I'm not super confrontational in my personal life. I'm confrontational when it comes to work, when I have like short amounts of patience for work situations, but when it comes to my personal life, I am not super confrontational. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to get rid of that moment. But I learned that when I wasn't communicating with Dave, I learned a lot about this in 2020 when I worked with my friend Jackie. I would become really resentful, and
you just build up. I think the short part of the most important part of this is it's like so important, regardless of how small it is, to get it off your chest. Like, communicate at the most simplest definition of the word. So if it's something like, it's basically like I keep leaving the toilet seat up, right? Something like that. Like Liz,
or the Q-tip by the toilet.
Right. Remember when you yelled at me about that, and then later that day you left a feminine product on the windowsill?
The plastic applicator. Okay, anyways. Communication is important. So what I was going to say is
I need to finish my thought.
Okay.
So it's just important, like, just get it off your chest. Like, instead of internalizing, like, the Q-tip that I left out on the ledge, like, in the bathroom, or, like, the towel on the ground, clothes on the ground. Like, if you just build all those up, then you explode over, like, the smallest little minute things. So it's so important to just, like, get it off your chest, talk about it, and then move on with your day.
You know what I've found? Something that is a very bad quality of myself when it comes to my guilt. I have tremendous amounts of guilt in my daily life.
Yeah.
And when I'm feeling guilty, I rely on Dave to like overcompensate for my guilt. So when I'm like feeling like I'm dedicating too much time for work, I like put it on Dave to be like a very present parent. But I'm not direct with that request. I'm very like passive aggressive. I'm like, you should fill in because like I can't. I'm working. And it's super destructive because then he gets resentful of me because I'm just kind of being a bitch. And I get resentful for him because he's not doing what my expectations are of him. And then it's really a bad situation. Like, that is where I started to learn that communication was so important, to the point where I can feel that guilt boiling up in my body. And then I get resentful that Dave is also on his computer or his phone, and and to the point where I have to tell Dave, and this, I feel like this makes me sound like I'm a horrible person, but it's something that I have to say to release that guilt and negative energy in myself. But I'll come up to Dave and be like, you're gonna think I'm a bitch for saying what I'm about to say, or what I'm about to say is mean, but I resent you for whatever it might be, something so stupid because I created this irrational situation in my own head. And Dave will be like, okay, well, that's wrong, and that is a stupid thing to think about or say or even consider. But I'm glad you communicated it to me. I'm glad you were able to say that, but let's talk about why you feel that way. We talk through it
and get over it. And sometimes we realize whatever we're communicating to each other is pointless, stupid, whatever, and we're like, I thought about that from the wrong way, and we move on. And other things are more important, and then they require a longer conversation that might not be solved in 2 minutes. It might take 2 days.
And I think to a fault, most women and moms feel like they carry the burden of the home, whether you're working or you feel like you constantly have to be cleaning or caught up on laundry or preparing meals or booking appointments for your family. And we feel like all of that load is on us. So I think it's easy sometimes to become resentful instead of being like, hey, can you help me with this?
Yeah.
And that's where lack of communication, I think, happens, because women just hold all this aggression sometimes towards their husbands, and they just want to. But I will say, especially in the last 2 years, with just being at home together, making some big life decisions together, like moving to Charleston, we have learned to communicate so much more. And also life changes like George. I think another thing as women, we always try to be super, super strong. And I have found myself very, very vulnerable the last 2 years, and just being I'm going to cry right now. And and just being I don't know why, I feel lonely, whatever it might be. And just,
I feel lonely.
I feel lonely.
I'm right here.
Dave, I remember one time after I had Charlie, this is so sad. I was having really bad postpartum, and I was sitting on the couch holding Charlie, and I was I'm going to cry. And I was just crying, and I was Dave's what's wrong? I'm I just feel so alone. And he was I'm
sitting right here.
I'm literally right here. And I was you don't get it.
I do. I didn't.
But I feel even that little communication is so important for both of us. This is hard for me. I'm communicating that to you. But yeah.
Do you want to try it?
No. But another thing, using that communication as we have become parents and communicating to a child is also hard. We are...
the hardest part is to just keep your cool when your kid has done something wrong for the 1,000th time, and you literally want to Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson him, but you don't, and you can't, and you won't. So you have to take a deep breath and just be Charlie, it is not okay that you just punched your brother in the stomach, and now you have to go to your room.
And also, when I think about our kids are at such different phases. Charlie is 6, so he's kind of at the point, he's still totally a little boy. But our expectations of him are a little higher. We're you know what's right or wrong, so the fact that you keep doing the wrong thing is really frustrating. Where Jack...
And then we try to have consequences.
And conversations again, of
you don't get dessert, or you're going to your room, or no TV, no phone, whatever. And but
he's such a strong-willed child that it's hard.
Yeah.
Jack is our old soul, but he has Charlie as a big brother. But he's also he's just turned 4. We went through a very hard stage with Charlie at that age. half of it is, I would say majority of it is just like they're at that age where like everything
terrible
is
twos rhymes, but 2 years old is like easy
compared to
3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
6 is better. 6
is
now
7 gonna be better?
Charlie knows right or wrong. He
It's
just
whether he chooses to do right.
And then George is just an angel sent
He
from
is.
heaven. But
He's-
communication there is like a whole different realm because you have to be so consistent as a parent in your communication.
Yeah, and both of us, right? Like we're
a team.
we have different opinions of how to deal with the situation, but like for the most
I'm a
part,
softie
we're
a
on
lot
the
of
same page of what we're trying to accomplish.
Right,
of,
like the end goal is
holding
to
them
have
accountable
like
for their actions.
a like kind, loving, empathetic child, not like.
Which they'll have to get from me. But we can keep pushing that out.
But there's a whole other thing, like just learning communicate. You realize communication is so important as a parent when you're parenting, like as a couple when you're parenting someone else and trying.
And you're not going to do it right? Like there's plenty of times where I'll raise my voice too much, and I try not to do that. Like when you're like yelling at the kids, but you get frustrated, and Liz will do the same thing. Where like she again thinks our children can read her mind, similar to me, so she'll just use inflection.
I just am like, Charlie, stop.
She'll be like, no.
And you'll be like,
you'll just be like, Charlie. Which, like, I know what she's trying to say to him.
Well, he's like doing one thing that's dumb. He should know what he's doing.
I know, but we like work on that to like try to be like, Charlie, please stop coloring on the walls. Charlie, if you color on the wall again, you will have to go to your room. And like it's so hard to like stay cool, calm, and collected when you're just frustrated and you have a million things going on. But
communication.
It just comes down to communication, and it's like we screw up, and then we'll talk about it to each other again, like getting it off our chest. I'll be like, I don't think you handled that situation with Charlie well or Jack well or whatever, and then Liz is very defensive. She'll be like, I think it was fine, and then
I'm like, he should know what I'm talking about.
I'll let her cool down, and then I'll come back to her and be like, he can't read your mind. Next time we need to do this, and she'll do the same to me. Like it's just all part of it. And again, it's going on our theme today of communication. And but you just got to ignore it.
I always just ignore it. I always think of the movie The Breakup, where she's like Rachel, Jennifer Aniston is like, I want you to want to do the dishes. And he's like, why would I want to do the dishes? Like, instead of just asking for him to do the dishes.
I'm always on you. I'm like, just tell me what to do.
I know.
For any scenario, and I'll do it.
But then I like don't want to be the bitch.
You're not a bitch if you're just like, will you just do this? And I'll be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the next topic question? We've been rambling a lot.
Sometimes, though, you don't do things fast enough.
Nothing's ever fast enough for Liz. She'd be like, will you, like, paint the deck? And I'll...
No, that was your project. You wanted to do that.
Well, it needed to be painted.
But if I'm like, can you go give the kids a bath?
Yeah. And then, like, I'll be literally, I was, like, literally on my computer doing something. This is last night. And I was, like, trying to get done, like, 2 tasks that would take approximately 2 to 3 minutes total. And Liz is like, hey, will you give the boys a bath? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, and then, like, 30 seconds go by, and she's like, I mean, I can just go give them a bath. Like, and I was like, stop. If I give them a bath now or in 5 minutes, it will not change anything of our routine. But, like, you can't stand it. Like, you are, like...
I'm just, like, I think during my day, I'm, like, just check off these boxes and just, like...
But as soon as you ask me to do it, just check the box, and then I'll do it. And it might not be in... like 8 seconds, it might be in 8 minutes, but I'll still do it because I told you I was going to do it.
Something about communication with Dave has like throughout our entire relationship, which I think in the last 2 years has like finally clicked, but like he forces communication. He's a very black and white person. Like women sometimes lead with their emotions, and Dave does not understand that. Like he's like, no, there has to be a reason. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't have a reason.
There is a reason. I just don't think you like to admit what the reason is sometimes.
Sometimes I know that the reason is stupid.
So then you won't admit it.
Yeah,
and then
but
when I try to question it on you, you get more upset.
But why can't you sometimes just let it be stupid? Like, why can't you just be like...
I should just ignore it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
full circle moment.
What an epiphany.
But like sometimes I just want to be like, can you just let me be a woman and emotional? Okay.
Like, can't you just let me be a man and play golf?
No, I can't.
See?
Okay.
It's not fair.
Speaking of communication, how do we make big decisions together? We talk about them.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, like, we continue to do the communication. I mean, for like the first 10 to 11 years of our relationship, we would talk about things and be like, I don't think we should buy that dresser because it's expensive and we already have a dresser that is fully functional that we bought last year. And then you would just go buy it.
But like sometimes
And
I'm
then
like,
when I
why
was
do you
gone,
care? You
you
know
just
that I'm
put it
going to
in.
decorate the house nicely.
Well, I like to be part of all these decisions, and you just go around my back.
When it comes to home decor, I didn't know Dave had such personal
We're going
preferences.
on year 12, and we fought for 12 years when you go buy stuff that we don't need that we already have. You're getting better, though.
Thank you.
That's not really true.
We just moved into a new house.
Ugh.
Otherwise, aside from that,
Yeah, not part of the budget.
okay, let's finish on something fun. What is like pulling teeth for you?
I don't really understand this question.
Something like someone asked me once what my biggest pet peeve about Dave is, and like,
But is pulling teeth a pet peeve?
no, I'm just saying
That's different.
this is my pet peeve about you, but like Dave is so go with the flow, which is, and like nothing stresses him out, which is amazing, but also to a fault, it annoys me because I'm like, if I'm stressed out about something, he'll be like, who cares? And I'm like,
Just ignore it.
yes, that is true. But like sometimes it annoys me when you don't just ignore it, or when you just ignore it.
But that's
It's
how
too
you have to
confusing.
ignore it.
But like sometimes I just want something to annoy you.
You
But you're
annoy me a lot.
very level-headed. Thank you.
But you still do annoy me.
Well, okay,
My
I'm not
kids
saying.
annoy me.
I know, but like, what's a pet peeve? Or wait, what's like pulling teeth? Can I say something stupid? Like emptying the dishwasher
things you
is
say.
really annoying.
But is that pulling teeth?
Not really.
I don't really I don't know if this question makes sense in the context of what we're discussing. Like pulling teeth is like something you
cringy, like
cringe and you do, like pulling a tooth hurts and you don't want it to happen. So like, I don't know.
organizing my pantry. I put that off a lot.
That's called
Sometimes
procrastination.
mundane tasks like filling up gas or going to the dry cleaners.
Wow.
But Dave will just be like, sure, give it all to me. And he just like goes and does.
Yeah. What's the point of waiting?
The fact, you know what? It's like pulling teeth watching you fake drink that mug.
I think we're confused with what the definition of pulling teeth is. So I think we should just stop talking.
Okay.
We've been rambling.
We have been rambling. That was a fun little episode. Communication, love, marriage, parenting.
We have no idea what we're doing.
Here's to next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye. Just ignore it.
That was good.
Thanks. Forgot to hit record.